Okay, good morning. Happy Monday morning, Internet land. We are just waiting for Instagram. I'm pointing because it's off on my right, but you don't know that. But in a minute, it'll be live, and then we will get started with our lovely topic of talking it out loud. And until then, I'm just going to keep talking out loud. No, I'm kidding. Hi, Morgan. Good morning. Oh, Instagram is live. So give me 1 second. Let's just go live everywhere. So I guess I really am just going to keep talking out loud until it's time to start. Okay, we are ready. Good morning, everybody. Mo, take it away.
Okay, good morning. Welcome to DIY Wellness. This is the show for people who are taking personal growth into their own hands. On this show, Brian and I present and explore different strategies for improving quality of life and well-being. And on each episode, we just discuss and look at one little method for that so that you, our listener, can learn a little bit about it and decide whether or not it's something that you want to try applying or experimenting with in your own life. We encourage you to only take the things that resonate with you. And if it doesn't resonate with you, toss out the rest, check out different episodes and see if you find something that has potential to help improve your quality of life.
Yeah. Right on. So today we are taking personal growth into our own hands by talking about the benefits of talking it out loud. Specifically, we're going to talk about how it's so important to process things externally and why that is. We're also going to talk about the balance between self-reliance, interdependence, and independence, and why it's so important to be self-reliant, but also have the place where you can talk it out loud. And then finally, we're going to get into what self-reliance and voluntary cooperation look like in action, because that's this merger of, being able to take care of yourself and being able to lean on the community for support.
Yeah.
So the way that go ahead.
The way that we came up with this topic was actually on one of our prior podcasts. Brian was struggling to figure out something with his computer, and I was like, talk to me about it. Tell me what you're doing. And just through him explaining to me what was going on, then I was able to reflect back and we were able to figure out, what could get his computer working. And so we were like, we should really talk about just that concept of talking about things out loud with another person, and how that increases the probability that you're going to find a solution, that you're going to make progress and be able to figure things out.
Yeah, exactly. Because specifically now I'm remembering in that interaction, I was struggling with something. I'm going to assume now, because I can't remember the details, that it was really, really hard and complex. Obviously, like a really hard and complex computer thing. But I was struggling to figure it out with Mo on the other side, but I was just struggling. And I was legit thinking to myself, figure this out. You've got to figure this out. You know what I mean? And then Mo is like, tell me what it is. What's going on? I was like, oh, yeah, there's literally another human right here. And I'm like caught in this literally a little anxiety spiral, because it was before we were going to go live a couple of weeks ago, and whatever it was, I couldn't figure out how to do it. And suddenly she was just like, talk it through with me. I'm right here. And I was like, oh my God. Yeah. And the reason that it became for me that I latched onto it as a great idea for a topic that we're now doing is because I realized in that moment that I was actually dealing with this cultural programming. Like, why would I not just be like, Mo, help me think this through? Instead, I was just like, caught in the storm of needing to get it done myself, and actually feeling like if I try to get support, that's evidence that I'm weak. You know what I mean? Figure it out, Brian. Figure it out. And that's just unconscious going on in there. And Mo just saw it. She's like, he seems stressed. Brian, what's going on? And I was like, oh my God, let me tell my friend. And it was actually very helpful. This is a small thing, right? Super tiny. It was mundane. It wasn't like I was caught in the deep throes of some emotional roller coaster. But yet it was still an epiphany and an awareness for me that, wow, I need to develop the skill of asking for help and leaning on other people. And why do I need to develop that skill? Because culture has taught us that skill is namby-pamby, and weak. But it's not. It's actually skillful. And there are real benefits to processing things externally. For example, solving your problem, like Mo helped me do a couple weeks ago.
Right. So in general, our culture encourages us to keep things inside, to try to deal with it by yourself before you reach out to somebody else, which in some cases can be a good thing, right? There's a balance to be struck, but that pattern in our culture kind of makes people feel like if they do reach out for help, if they do try to process something externally or talk it out, that it's a sign that they weren't strong enough to do it by themselves. But actually, in reality, two heads are better than one in most cases. And so, saying something out loud gives our brains a chance to look at our thoughts and our thinking, figure it out, find a solution, hopefully sooner, and possibly one that you may not have even seen had you just done it by yourself.
Yeah, and the process of coming to your solution will also be more enjoyable. Like in the little example with me and Mo, again, like she was already with me, but
Mhm.
across state lines or whatever, but we were together in this Restream environment. But I was feeling all alone in the struggle that I was having. You know what I mean? And as soon as she was like, "Help me, let me help you figure this out." Like, A, I'm a verbal processor, so that was a huge gift. And B, it was just like that little 4 minutes of figuring out what it was now 4 minutes in community where I was
Yeah.
struggling to figure out what it was, as opposed to 4 minutes of being isolated. And that's a huge difference. And in like human beings are hardwired for social belonging, for community. Like it's not like it's just some people prefer community and some don't. Even us loners, like there is a part of our psyche that thrives in community. You might only need a little bit. Like sometimes I can get my sense of community by driving through the Starbucks line. I've told Morgan that, and that will be enough
Mhm.
on a given day, right? But you still need something. You need a touch point of belonging, of social whatever. And for most of us,
Mhm.
we need way even more than that, because that is an evolutionary imperative. It's how we stayed alive, by cooperating in groups, right? So that's exactly where we're going with this. It's like we're such self-reliant beings now in this culture. We've lost sight of the voluntary cooperation part that brought us this far, that kept us alive this long as a species and put us at the very top of the food chain. That's through both
Yeah.
of those things, self-reliance and voluntary cooperation.
Yeah.
So
What
yeah, go ahead.
what's coming up for me as you're saying that is, so I see a lot of people who want to have stronger friendships. Like this is a common, coaching topic where people feel isolated, especially after, COVID over the last, 5 years, right? And people want to have stronger relationships. And what I think a lot of people don't realize is that processing externally actually is a great tool and skill for building and strengthening your relationships.
Mm-hmm.
If we are processing everything internally, then okay, yeah, you're trying to figure out your stuff on your own because you want to be strong, you want to be independent. But what people forget is that if you turn to your friends when you're struggling with something, that makes them feel valued. That makes them feel connected to you. That makes them feel like they are being trusted with something.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes I will have moments in my life where I'm like, I kind of know what to do about this, but I'm going to get a second opinion because it gives me a reason to reach out to one of my friends. And I really think that that's part of what helps me maintain so many strong relationships with a bunch of different people, is because I look for things to chat with people about. Even if
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily need to, I don't think of it as like making me weak if I ask somebody their opinion, if I ask somebody their feedback or what they would do and if they were in my shoes, right? Because it's a way to connect, it's a way to build community.
Yeah.
And so I think if we can hold that benefit in our mind of me having the humility to turn to another person may actually strengthen my relationships. It kind of
Mm-hmm.
reduces the resistance to being willing to process things externally with other people.
Yeah, wow, that's beautiful. And it brings to mind this quote from the Bible, which is like, it says in there, it's from Jesus's Sermon on the Mount, right? And he says
Mhm.
something like, the meek shall inherit the earth, is the phraseology
Mm.
he uses at one point. And that makes so much sense to me now, especially in light of what you were just saying. Like, because the way forward in this paradigm shift that we're all living through, for me, is something around this idea of cooperation and humility. And so
Mm.
you show up in humility, you are building more community. And like what we don't do right now is show up in humility. That's generally what is frowned upon in our culture. You know what I mean? Like we're taught to get ahead and get to the top of that pyramid, right? And instead, this like interfacing and asking people their opinion, and in humility saying, I'm not sure the way forward, or I think I know, but can you help? Like that is a way of, that's the paradigm shift in action, right? So like that's like a really powerful way forward. And it's also supported by so many mystical things. Like I'm realizing now, Jesus also said, where two or more are gathered in my name, I am there with them, right? Like, so this isn't necessarily to say that's about a Christian belief, but like for me, I think of the Bible as metaphorical. And what that message is telling me is that when two people put their heads together, there's a mystical third party that comes and helps them out.
Oh. Oh,
And
that's interesting. Yeah,
that's
there's
how
like
I,
more.
Yeah.
more wisdom and ideas that comes in to like in service of solving whatever problem you're trying to think through when you talk it out with somebody
Mhm.
else.
Yeah, and it's also in
Yeah.
Think and Grow Rich. This is Napoleon Hill. He wrote this book in the 30s, and he talks about his main thing is helping people fulfill their definite major purpose. And his main way of saying to get there is to create a mastermind group for this very reason, because where more people are gathered around the same end, it's more likely to flourish and come about. So, of course, if you're trying to tackle something big, a mastermind group might be the way to go. But if you're trying to tackle something small, like figuring out a computer glitch, it's also okay to just call up a buddy, and you're a mini mastermind group for those few minutes, right? So it doesn't have to be a big formal thing. But that's like the idea here, and I've felt this in my own life, is that when you take one mind, you have one. When you take two minds, you have three, not just two.
Mhm.
It becomes exponential, right? So
Right.
that's the power of this. Not only does it help you build community and solve your problems, but it gives us access to a level of innovation that you just don't have by yourself.
Yeah. And there is one more prerequisite to this. Whoever you choose to speak with about about, whatever it is you're trying to figure out or whatever you're trying to generate insight on, it has to be someone who is open to your ideas. It has to be someone who is open to that exchange and flow of conversation, because sometimes there are people that you'll try to talk to and they are a wall because they can only see and hear their own ideas. Those are not the kind of people to talk to when you're trying to build insight. But I am sure all of you, have somebody in mind when I say that. You know that there are certain people that maybe don't process things externally with, because they might not be all that helpful if they're not also hearing what you have to say. But there's plenty of people out there who are interested in this mutual exchange of information and generating ideas and getting creative, and that's where the benefits are.
Yeah, it's where the magic happens.
Yes.
The literal legit magic, in my opinion. It's where that's where that comes from. And this idea of being more encouraged to talk things out loud and build the bridges like this, it's already happening in spades in our society, but it's not given the megaphone, so to speak, right, by the mainstream media or by whatever. And so I, again, using my new buddy, my administrative assistant, ChatGPT, I had a conversation about where are voluntary cooperation and self-reliance evident in our world already. And it gave me this beautiful list of endeavors where people are building community outside this paradigm of capitalist control and getting ahead first and my way or the highway. That completely separate from that, there are these things in society that have existed, some for decades and longer, that should give us hope that this paradigm shift that we're living through can continue. For example, volunteer fire departments, like those are literally self-reliance and voluntary cooperation in action, and they save life after life after life just because they fucking want to. Like,
Mhm.
that's so inspiring to me. You know what I mean? Nobody's getting paid to do that. Like, literally nobody. They just want
Yeah.
to. They want to be that force in the world, and that's
Mhm.
it. Like, we could free ourselves from this need to always have it be productive, right? And just be the force you
Yeah.
want to be in the world with the people, with the cooperative element. There's
Yep.
neighborhood tool libraries, there's support groups, disaster relief networks, mentorship programs in schools, interfaith alliances. This one really struck me too, because an interfaith alliance, again, they don't make any money, but this is just different religions, different faiths that have decided we don't care about our differences. We're going to join together because of the common thing we have, which is compassion and love for people and yada, yada. And they do this
Yeah.
awesome stuff in the community voluntarily through self-reliance and voluntary cooperation with no expectation for remuneration other than storing up the treasures in heaven, so to speak, or whatever, right? So
Yeah.
it's just I wanted to say this part to say out there, like, voluntary cooperation and self-reliance are already a strong force in our world. They already are, but they're not a strong force in our cultural zeitgeist in the way that they're talked about. So
You're using some big words here. I'm gonna break it down again. What
go.
Brian's referring to by voluntary cooperation and self-reliance is that when you bring different people together, rather than each individual trying to solve a problem on their own. So he's kind of scaling it from like a conversation, a couple of people coming together and talking about something externally, to what happens when more people come together to try to solve a larger problem, perhaps a more societal
Mm-hmm.
problem. There's still a greater capacity to solve and address issues when you do it in community rather than trying to do it by yourself.
Mm-hmm. By yourself or through controlled and force, which is what the
Yeah.
government currently uses as a tool, right? So we're finding ways to bring our self-reliance to bear on the societal landscape also through the means of voluntary cooperation, which is also what makes your individual self-reliance more fun. So you're not so isolated all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I guess with that, what I just want to leave people with is, you know, you're not in this by yourself. That's the old way of thinking, and that might still be what society's pushing out there, but it isn't the truth. It's not really the truth. Find the people who are like-minded with you. If you're listening to this show, then you have us already who are like-minded. Like, hang out in our comments if you don't have another community for now. You know what I mean? And build as you go, and don't give up, because you're not alone. And self-reliance is awesome, but it's not all it's cracked up to be. Voluntary cooperation is the other side of that coin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, thanks for this conversation, Brian. And whenever I need to process something externally, I'll either be calling you or one of my other friends.
Right on. Same. And thank you, everybody, for being here. We love you all. Until next week at 8:30 a.m. Eastern, keep taking personal growth into your own hands. Bye, everybody.